Hello, and you're listening to Ashley Simons, the podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Simons. Um, I guess I've been a web developer for a long time. I like React and I like Node.js, and occasionally I do TAFE subjects or something, and they make me do Java, and I do it to the best of my ability, but probably shouldn't pay me to do Java. Um, uh, we've got with us Yash Shelatkar, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey guys, I'm Yash and I'm an app developer and a photographer.
Yeah.
But lately I'm getting more into photography and filmmaking kind of scene, so more like him, Ashley, now.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Recently, he took a photograph of a fire hydrant, and I could almost swear it was a 3D render in Blender or something. Um, but how did you process that image?
Well, I reduced some exposure on that image and add the red more, but also gave it a matte finish in the background on the texture, so it looks more like a console kind of game art rather than a real image.
Yeah, it tricked me. Um, I kind of sort of I like cameras. I don't know that I like photography. Like I occasionally do it because I have to, and because I have the cameras. But um, I sort of feel between a rock and a hard place because if I go to university, I don't really see the point learning their camera because I probably can't afford their camera, and I don't want to spend 100 hours editing 1 minute of footage. I'd rather set up a studio and film podcasts. I don't think they. I mean, I guess I could go learn radio or something at university, but um, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if I go study film and TV, it's sort of like one, it's full of essays of like I watched a movie and this is what the scenes are like, but two, I don't know if I want to learn their cameras because they're not the cameras I have at home that I would do the work with. Anyway,
Yeah, I think if you go to uni to learn photography, they're gonna give you more for film cameras and exposure, rule of third, and theory kind of based as well.
yeah,
So I'd say you learn more in real life photography.
yeah. All right, well, got some questions for Yash, and hopefully we get to them all. But let's kick this off. So, are you still doing university and work at the same time?
I'm kind of doing work and uni at the same time, but uni is on break right now, so of course I'm just working now. But yeah, I will be doing eventually in October, 2 or 3 weeks. I'll be doing work and uni together
Yeah,
before my uni finishes, since this is my final sem, and I'll just do work full time,
yeah. Okay.
and I'll start traveling after that.
So I might be starting university when you finish it.
Yeah.
Um,
I've started way back in 2017, and ever since then, I'm just delaying doing it, quitting, and
yeah,
just decided to finish up now since this pandemic going on. Can't travel, can't do anything else.
yeah.
Why not finish everything?
For me, I've done some TAFE, but I don't think I'm going to apply for any recognition of prior learning because, like, okay, I've learned Python before and they're going to teach me Python. I'm still going to learn if I do Python again. Like I don't have, I feel like I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm expected to have recently done something and it be fresh in my mind when we start learning Java or something, and them actually have made it a painful dependency on a previous subject. Um, but I guess if you're just fit and young, you just go find that information out when you need it, and go source the information online, and then come back to the uni stuff refreshed.
Yep. But yeah, in terms of me, I think uni. I kind of took admission in a haste when I decided to do a degree in IT rather than a film school
Yeah.
because I already knew much about IT from my diploma in TAFE,
Yeah.
and I would have been good with just working off other things by myself rather than doing a degree. But I did get credit for 12 subjects, so that reduced a bit amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really torn. Like I think I'm never gonna do a full IT degree. Um because I don't want to like learn networking and security and like do all these generic IT
Yeah.
degrees that lead to the programming. Um and so I'm looking at generic degrees that let me pick and choose majors, and I might do some really creative combinations, or I might do really obvious combinations like you do animation and visual effects and games programming. And I realized there's not that much games programming in a games major because it's just full of generic programming subjects. Um, but uh, 8 subjects of I can probably stomach 8 subjects of IT. I don't know if I'm gonna I'd be able to stomach like 3 years of IT subjects that I already kind of know. Um, I could probably get recognition of prior learning for the first year just based on my work experience, I'm guessing. Um, is that process pretty easy with university or?
Um, if you have done your TAFE diploma, the process is fairly easy because they have a partnership with TAFE. But if you're doing it for prior work experience, then you would need some written letter and proof from employers as well. But the learn the prior learning thing is more about a certain feature. So if a employer gives you like, yeah, you know how to work with Scrum methodology, you could get just a grade for that, but you don't know the entire course unit, so you still have to do the subject.
Yeah. Okie dokie. I've probably asked you this before, but um, so a programming subjects at TAFE SA better or worse than programming at Uni SA?
Well, I prefer subjects more at TAFE because they're getting you a bit more on practical terms rather than a theory based learning. And you get to make your own projects while you're finishing your assignments. So your exams are also on practical learning.
Yeah. All right, let's get a bit more social. Whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up in Mumbai, in India, and in Adelaide as well, ever since I've been 16.
Yeah. And you went to Melbourne and came back to Adelaide after that?
Yeah. So I was 18 when I finished my diploma in TAFE, and I went to Melbourne to work in as a mobile app developer. And ever since then, I was working there until pandemic started, and there were constant lockdowns in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Couldn't go out much, and decided to move to Adelaide because there was no restrictions here back then. And it's been a good decision, I'll say.
Okay. And you finding it easy enough to get work in Adelaide?
Yes, it's fairly easy once you have a bit experience rather than starting in Adelaide.
Yeah. I'd probably counteract. Probably counter that idea a little bit in that if you go to Melbourne, it's pretty competitive just because there's lots of people around. Um, and I feel like Adelaide's a great city to start because there still are companies here. But I'd probably almost start in Adelaide and then move to Sydney or Melbourne and then like move to New York or something and kind of like progress that way through your career instead of going straight to Melbourne. But if that worked for you, that's pretty good.
Because I think more in terms of app development based, it's more in Melbourne
Yeah,
compared to Adelaide. But yeah, if you're a web developer, you can find a job easily in Adelaide, even after uni.
yeah. What was your highest achievement in IT in primary school?
Well, I used to know how to use Microsoft Office 2003, and I actually know how to install pirated games and the crack patches on them. Did some jailbreak on PSP with PlayStation Portable when it came out in 2007.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of an achievement because by doing the jailbreak, I could just download all the ISO images and install games rather than buy the UMD discs
Yeah.
on PSP. And at one point, I had a collection of 80 gigs of games.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I had any handheld games as a kid because I was well, I was poor and I'm also older than you. So we had like Sega Mega Drive and things like that. I think my cousin had a Sega Game Gear handheld, um, which could play like Master System games and stuff. Um, but in primary school, I was quite proud in year 1 or 2 being the first person to put fill effects onto things in PowerPoint, and everyone's like, "Wow, that's really cool. How do I do that?" Um, and then But really, in year 7, someone taught me what hyperlinks were, and I could create these in Word. And around that year 7, year 8 sort of level, made 1 or 2 web pages in Word that were terrible. Obviously, probably everything's fixed position and like stuck to the left hand corner and stuff like that. Um, but yeah. That's how I kind of got started in my web development track. But in high school, I had access to Dreamweaver and Photoshop and stuff. All right, what's the coolest thing you did in high school?
In terms of the coolest thing in high school, I'd say like just learning different parts of history because I was more interested in learning history than in IT
Yeah,
or science. I was probably feeling at one point. I just failed in all my subjects, but
general history or IT
uh,
history?
journal history,
Yeah,
nothing related to IT. Like IT wasn't even a long thing. Even I forgot to use Excel until that point. So I wasn't doing anything much in IT, but more in history, geography, political science.
yeah,
Those were my key focus subjects I used to find interest in.
and that's why you applied for university, something along those lines.
Yes, I applied to do a bachelor's in business and human resources
Yeah,
before deciding to drop out and do games development degree. But if I decide to do a diploma first just to get a hands on if I love doing IT
yeah,
and I'm not directly getting into a uni.
bit cheaper, I suppose.
Yeah, like you're not making a big loss.
Yeah. So describe how you ended up with your first professional work.
So I was in like I said, I went to Melbourne to find a work,
Yeah.
and after going there in like 1 month time, I was going to meetups and stuff, and found a good startup in prop tech to start working on their iOS app and the Node.js functionality for them.
Yeah.
So I was just doing that for like 1 month, and afterwards I started doing freelance work for about a year and a half until the pandemic hit, and I didn't work for next 3 months after that,
Okay.
and moved to Melbourne, moved to Adelaide.
So what was the work like at this prop tech company?
It was more of a Node.js and a fusion of iOS tasks. So native iOS development in Swift and Node.js features in JavaScript, Twilio integration, and like creating a real-time chat rendering service.
This makes me feel old because like when I think like the start of someone's career in iOS, I think Objective C, and you're young enough that it's Swift.
Yeah. Uh, I do a bit Objective C only when there's certain packages that are still using Objective C and haven't moved to Swift yet, so still need to use it. Lately, I use Objective C in React Native to integrate both React Native components inside iOS app.
Yeah. It's nice having a list of questions and I don't have to remember them all. Um,
Kind of remember the question somewhat.
did you look at the list of questions before you came?
I looked the day you sent me.
Okay, yeah. So along the way, did you have mentors and friends who were interested in IT?
Yes, most of my friends have been interested in somewhat IT, and in Melbourne, the people I was living with were developers themselves or students who were learning IT. And my other roommates in Adelaide prior to that were also software developers. So I've been surrounded by people in IT.
Yeah. I I think one of the reasons I stayed in IT was LAN parties. Like I didn't have a good computer when I left the country and moved to the city at the start of high school. But then we got a good enough computer then that I could start going to LAN parties. And my mentor, I met at a LAN party for PHP, and well, not the PHP wasn't anything to do with the LAN party, but the mentor was for PHP, and um, he noticed I had these public shared folders, and he wrote some Excel macro to fill my shared folder with so many folders that when you open the folder, it had a little like searching light icon in Windows, and it took like 5 or 10 minutes to list anything that was in that directory. And yeah, he said, "Oh, next time don't put a password on your shared folders." Um, so that was interesting. But when I was speaking to him, I was doing silly things like I would download the HTML from a website and put it on a web server and kind of think it might behave like the PHP scripts might work, but really that's just HTML and you can't download the PHP scripts that way. Like I downloaded a PHP BB forum and tried to make that work, but he was like, "Go learn what PHP is and come back." And so I did that, and then I just got I think hooked on programming. Like I I like creating things, but it just seems like the most powerful descriptive way to do something. And sometimes now when I go learn like animation or 3D modeling or something, and I see that the whole screen is full of tools and settings, and it just doesn't seem as elegant as like you have a blank piece of paper, well, on a computer, and you just type, and then at the end of it, something magical happens.
Yep.
Um, so that, yeah. Uh, do you have any funny stories of things you did when you were first starting out coding?
Um, I don't remember much about the stories in terms, but I do remember in TAFE, me and three other people decided like we're going to solve assignments as a group,
Yeah,
and we were creating an Android app. In in reality, we had to create Android app each person, but we decided to group our work together. But we got caught in the end because we all had the same bug
yeah,
in the code. So the lecturer didn't realize we were helping each other, but the bug was identical.
yeah,
So he messaged us 4 o'clock in the morning, stating, "Hey, I don't know what you did, but your code kind of looks somewhat identical, and I need you to change it."
yeah. Busted.
And yeah, never copy someone's bugs,
Yeah.
even if you get their features.
Some bosses just think, you know, they'll provide you with Stack Overflow and you can just copy and paste entire
Yeah,
projects and it won't take very long. But they don't realize that you read an entire Stack Overflow page, maybe even you read 10 of them, and then you just copy one line of code, that one person who did it properly, who you like the way they did it, and then you put it in the project. It's not that no one's posting entire features in a Stack Overflow thread.
but it's also more like you can't just copy directly from Stack Overflow because you might be using some other way to achieve the entire class or the function. You're just checking how he did in terms of what features he used, and then you're trying to replicate that in your own code.
Yeah. What is something you feel passionate about in the workforce?
In terms of IT, I feel like everyone is helping each other, and the industry is good in terms of flexibility with working from home or even working from office whenever you want that to happen. You can even
Mm.
work from a pub if you
Yeah.
want. So we have a kind of luxury in that space where you're getting to choose, which most of us aren't. If we are sitting here in lockdown, we could still work, but that's kind of a privilege I've came to understand now.
Yeah. And that resonates with me because I'm trying to do something old school. I'm trying to make a studio, and then lockdown, COVID things happen, and you can't invite people over. Um, but if I was still trying to do web development, you could still work from home or whatever. Um, but I'm quite, I think, susceptible to the dangers of working from home. Um, like you're at the computer for 9 hours because two of it you couldn't get yourself to work. Like, you know, like um, two of it was YouTube videos and going and getting cake and um, drinking Pepsi and stuff. And so you end up working longer than you would if you just went into the workplace and you just sat there and knocked it out. Um, so yeah, I don't know if it really works for me. Like my doctor once says, "Oh yeah, just like get a 15 hours a week, work from home," and but I just it'll end up taking me 25 hours of effort to do 15 hours of work because there's no one around pressuring you to work. Um, yeah. Do you find it easy to work from home or?
I find a bit of hybrid, so I would work from home when I have some parcel coming in, or the weather's not good, but I would love to go work in person when there's some sprint review or a meeting going on,
Yeah.
or if I'm doing some pair programming with someone, I'll just go and work there.
Meetings are great because you get called into a meeting and you think it's kind of like useless. Be like, I'm happy to get paid for an hour and a half to sit here and do nothing. That's fine. I could use a break.
Yeah, it could be put that way, but it's also more about when you're attending meeting on Zoom, it just doesn't feel natural.
Yeah. Are you doing any 3D game work right now?
Yes, I am working on a work experience project for my final year in uni. So the game we are creating is called The Last Stand, and it's a hybrid of a 2D game board, but on certain places, once your player moves some action on the RTS board, you're also gonna go to 3D mode to finish that action. So let's say you're planning an ambush, you have used that function, but now you have to do ambush by yourself rather than an AI. So you have to go into a first person mode, kill all the enemies, and find the objects, then return back to the board.
So you're doing your work experience at uni instead of with the work with an employer, is
Yep,
it?
I'm
Yeah.
doing it directly with uni.
Do you think you work less hours for uni than you do for an employer?
I think it's kind of similar because I've been doing 20 hours a week at uni just for my work experience. So it would have been similar with an employer as well.
Yeah.
But this is more like in uni, you get to choose your own project. So you're more focused and passionate about that.
I ask because if I did animation and visual effects at uh, university, I kind of assumed that when you get a job in visual animation and visual effects, you're there like 10 or 12 hours a day, sweating it out. Um, you know, some movie contract comes in and they've got to finish it in 8 months, and you're there just, sweating out big days. So I'm kind of assuming if I do the third year at uni instead of the third year at an employer, then like I won't have to work as much. I can't.
Uh, yeah, you won't have like hard deadlines or like proper work pressure, and it's all uni based, so you have a bit of relief in that way. But you also need marks, so you need to finish your project as well.
Yeah. So what's the plan for the next couple of years?
So the first plan for next 6 months is to get the uni degree finished and start traveling while I'm working.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that lockdowns would end eventually now that people are getting vaccines, and once we reach 80% vaccination rate, there could be more freedom to travel.
Yeah.
Like in terms of I could visit Melbourne for a few days, do
Yeah.
my work as well, remote, come back to Adelaide, go to NT.
Yeah.
So yeah, bit more in filmmaking as well, and more photography focused work.
Yeah.
It's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. I quite like your photographs, and I'm thinking you dropped this. You dropped this and another time I met with you, but you're taking something like 50 photographs for every one that you post online.
Yes, so it's more like sometimes I just take 250 photographs in 5 or 6 hours, but I'm posting one as an Instagram story or one on a Facebook post just because I don't like most of the photos, but I just find like a particular frame
Interesting.
too good.
Yeah. So like
Yeah,
250, you reckon,
yeah.
for every one or two photographs.
But those 250 aren't bad, but when you compare to the one or two, they're not that great.
Yeah, there's something about there's something about 1 out of 200 photographs that's like a little bit
Yeah.
special. Just a few things line up, like general principles, like rule of thirds, and that might apply, but you might have also broken those rules a little bit or in an interesting way, and that just makes a photograph that I've never seen anything quite like that before. And I think you do a good job of that.
So it's more about you also tend to tell a story with a particular photograph. And sometimes, like the fire hydrant just resonated some game I used to play earlier. So it's more about expressing yourself through photos.
Yeah, I think yeah. I The good thing about photos is they take less. Well, they might take less time to edit. Like the ratio is probably the same, and what I mean by that, like, is you you spent 2 hours trying to take a photograph, and you might spend 5 to 10 hours editing one photograph. Don't know, but there's some days when it's like 5 minutes of editing a photograph instead of 5 hours. And with video work, you shoot a film, and 1 minute, 1 minute of footage could be like 100 hours of editing. And that to me just boggles my mind. I'm like, I just don't want to be in a video editor for that long, even though I love filming. Um, I don't want to be an editor that long, and so I've built this podcast studio in a way that it just like you just get the finished product at the end dumped out, and I don't have to do much editing or any editing really. Um, but the problem with that is you get little imperfections. Like at the start of this podcast, I left it a little bit too long on this layer where your lower third graphic was there, and because I did that, then when I spoke, you didn't see me, and I had to change this scene so that it went back to switching automatically all over the place. Yes, tangents are good on podcasts. Do you have any advice for young budding developers?
Try new things, connect with more people, be kind, and yeah, try to engage in side hobbies as well rather than just doing programming, I'll say. Because people tend to assume if you're doing IT, then you're going to be doing it for life, or you're just going to be focused on IT and not other things and like filmmaking or photography. But I think you should let go of that taboo and just do what you want.
Yeah, branch out. Um, Probably some advice I'd have is like, as soon as possible, don't work too hard. And what I mean by that is like your first job is often really stressful. Um, and they're kind of relying they're kind of relying on you going ahead and assuming things that they wouldn't say is true if you call them out on it. And what I mean by that is like you might think I have to be here 10 hours a day because I'm the new guy. But really, if you worked 7.5 hours, you're probably not going to lose your job. Like, they're not going to fire you because of that slight difference. But it would be best if you didn't put the weight of the world on your shoulders when you're trying to prove yourself, because there's going to be days when, like, if you keep that habit up, there's going to be days when you're expected to debug a production server that's on fire, and you might kill a database or something if you're like run the wrong command or whatever. And it's better to just have a cool head. And if Apache's not up for the next 30 minutes, then it's not up for the next 30 minutes. And you just be diligent, but don't put the weight of the world on your shoulders and think, I have to get this done, I have to get this done. Just take your time and do it accurately and consistently. Um, but don't feel like you have to stay back 2 hours every night just because you assumed that and not because you asked that. Um, yeah. Would you feel would you feel the same way, um or do you think, or
Um,
work lots to impress?
like I would say, you should, if you can't solve that problem, let's say it's 4 o'clock and you're not able to solve it, then you shouldn't spend next 2 hours solving it and move on, do something else you could solve while you try. Sometimes you just like resonate something later and oh, I can solve it now.
Yeah. All right. So it's probably one of the last questions, but what is the dream?
Dream is to eventually do IT as a hobby
Yeah.
and move into more filmmaking genre as well. But yeah, really just explore new things, travel around the world.
Yeah.
So it's not like some typical create a big app, be rich, as of now at least.
Um, it's a tough one for me. I think really the most immediate practical dream is that I want to be in a business where I'm partner with about 5 or 6 other partners in a kind of multi-disciplined team. Um, Maybe that's in the form of an agency at first to like keep the lights on, but hopefully that kind of morphs into a web startup or something of our own that you would then eventually be able to stop doing the client work. I think that's the dream. I really go back and forth about how to get there. Getting there could be university part-time. It could be really nailing down this podcasting business and then slowly starting to build websites for people. And then I hope once I have 6 to 12 months business experience of like, here I made a functioning business and I'm living off myself, then I've got assets to negotiate with partners. Like I can go into a partner meeting and say, I have this viable business. Really, I want to join with you and make an even bigger business. So let's join together. And really, I'd like it to be that it's like a really good culture, where a culture that's not possible with employees. And what I mean by that is you work really hard. One week you might work really hard Monday to Thursday, and then Friday everyone goes to the cinema. Like, you can't really do that with employees too much. But if those people you're with are partners and they're willing to give up a day's pay to go see the movie, then I think that's they won't have to give up the pay because they're partners and they can still get paid. But I'm just I just mean I'd really like that flexibility of like, you know what, I don't want to work today, so I'm going to go to the pictures and Nordberger and like, I don't want to take it so seriously that I have to be there 9 till 6, 5 days a week. And with this podcasting business, then it's supposed to be like 10 hours a week. It's not supposed to be this 40-hour a week thing. And then still be able to live off it, basically. So if you need a podcast, come to Ashley Simons. Ashley Simons Media is who I am on Facebook. Well, I think we're about done, and it's time for the music, the ending music. Well, Yash, how was our first podcast?
Yeah, seems nice. Yeah, everything went along well. We had touched on before as well. So things were good.
Except for my stuff up at the start. But
I really like the organization of cameras here. As someone who's more like camera focused and Sony focused, I really love seeing 3A6000s here.
yeah. For those who don't know, this setup is done with 3 A6000 Sonys going into HDMI into my computer using OBS and its lights. I don't know. This is the last of my money has made this home studio, and yeah, if it works out, then that would be great. Well, let's stop the music. I'm your host, Ashley Simons. You've been listening to Ashley Simons, the podcast. Take it away, Yash, with our closing statement.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Ashley, here, and do subscribe to his channel, and yeah, give it a thumbs up.
All right.
It's going on YouTube, right?
Yeah, probably will. Maybe Facebook too. All right, over and out.